the question is, what is the best way to get from the airport in Orlando to Walt Disney World property? So, Kate, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one because I don't typically fly.
Yeah, and I'm flying in a couple days there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this has changed over time. A lot of people, if you haven't been to Disney in a long time, used to have the Magical Express service that was a free bus service that took you to your resort. That doesn't exist anymore, sadly.
Womp
Rest in
womp.
peace, Magical Express. So, I think it was Magic Express? Magical Express. I always get it mixed
Magical.
up. I've always got it express. I think it's magical. Anyway, the express is gone. Now you have to go with a new one. And it's interesting because this has actually changed since we did an episode about this. Because there used to be two main bus companies that you could take. One was Mears Connect and the other one was Sunshine Flyer. Mears Connect has now acquired Sunshine Flyer.
Yep.
So they've merged into one big company, which is what it is. So Mears Connect is one way to go. It is roughly around I want to say $36 for adults.
That sounds right.
A little cheaper for kids. And sometimes they run promotions with kids, go free with an adult or discounted with adults or all those kinds of things. So you can kind of keep an eye out for those. I have found Mears Connect to be fairly reliable. You do have to do a shared service unless you pay for the much more expensive direct service, like very much more. It's like $250. It's a lot more. So
That's a lot more.
it's like way out of my price bracket. But they'll take you and your luggage and they'll drop you off at your Disney resort. Usually it's to the Disney resorts. They do service a couple of the ones that are around Disney as well, so you'd have to look online and see which ones they go to. But they do get you there in roughly an hour-ish, depending on how many stops you have and what time of day you fly in. Sometimes you can wait in pretty long lines there if you're coming in at a popular time, or if they don't have anything. But I've never waited longer than like 10 to 15 minutes to get on my bus, and then maybe another 45 minutes from there to my hotel. So I usually budget about an hour.
Yeah. And keep in mind that the price for that is per person.
Per person,
so
yes.
You are paying per person. So if you have a family of 5, like Kate does, and you're trying to use that is whatever the rate is per person.
Yeah, and that is round trip too. So you could, in case you only wanted to go and never come back, you could just do it one way. That's always an option. But usually you're going round trip, so that's why I just give the round trip price. Yeah. Other options is they do have, I believe, both Lyft and Uber. I haven't used them there. I usually use them in Anaheim a whole lot more, but I do know they do exist there. And so that is an option, especially if you have a big family and you want to do like Uber XL or something like Lyft XL. That might actually save you more money than taking $36 per person.
Yes.
So you have to kind of do the math there. You can go online and estimate their cost. There's a really great app that's called Rome to Rio that I use all the time for when I travel anywhere now. I use it for international travel, but it also works virtually anywhere. And it will tell you the cost of taking different modes of transportation and also show you how to get there.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it's a free app, Rome to Rio. Definitely recommend that one. It doesn't necessarily price out Lyft rides, but it'll give you a general like taxi rate. So you can kind of like be like, okay, that's the taxi rate, and maybe then go and check out Lyft and Uber. Yeah. But that one's, so you can do that. You can do a taxi. I wouldn't probably recommend that as my first one. I'd probably go either the bus or the Lyft or Uber, or rent a car. Rent a car is the other option. Sometimes rental cars can be super expensive though from MCO.
Yeah.
Especially vans, like if you have a big family.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on how long you're keeping the rental. Because I do know, and I have heard from, I believe it was our friend Victoria that told me that there is a rental car drop-off spot on, like in the middle of Disney property. So sometimes if you can find a good rate for just like a few hour rental, it may be cheaper for you to rent a car, drop it off on Disney property, and then take a bus back to wherever you're going to go from there. So keep that in mind as well to look at kind of some different options. And I will mention that Uber and Lyft do also both allow you to like do a book ahead. So like you can pre-book your time that you need to be picked up at the airport or at your resort.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that going in. Like, I would maybe
Hmm.
do that from my resort back to my hotel, but
Yeah.
it's so unpredictable when you fly, especially these days,
Yeah.
especially like right now in the middle of winter, like everything's
Right.
canceled and things like that. And you just don't know if your flight's going to get delayed.
Hmm.
I'd say at least 50% of my flights are delayed by some amount, and
Yeah.
some of them make me miss connections and stuff like that. And I fly once a month. So I
Right.
would say you probably wouldn't schedule them on the way out, but they're usually pretty quick to get
Yeah.
on the way in.
Yeah.
So,
Unless you have like a ridiculously early or late time, you may have to wait a few extra minutes, but even then, it's such a busy airport that
yeah,
you'll have no problem. Now, I will
right.
also just mention in there that if you're going to the Sanford airport, that's a totally different story because there is that second airport in the Orlando area that some people do go to. That does Mears does not service that airport. So
No.
keep that in mind. That is not an option if you're going to Sanford. The other options are available. You may wait a little bit longer for something like a Lyft or an Uber out there, just because I don't think there are as frequent drivers that kind of populate that area. Most of them go to MCO, the Orlando airport, because that's where the majority of the flights are.
Yeah. And I know in Anaheim, at least, I had a Lyft driver who schooled me on how to, to make sure he was saying, for them in the Anaheim area, of course, this is across the country,
Hmm.
that Mondays in particular, but virtually any early morning flight, there's a lot of people trying to get to those flights. And so if you don't pre-book, there's a chance there might not be a driver available to get
Hmm.
you there because there's so many people trying to
Yeah.
get there at the same time. So that I think pre-booking is very, very wise if you're going to use one of those methods of getting back to the airport so that you don't miss your
Yeah.
flight.
Yes.